What I'm about to say is controversial, but Madam Web was bad. Sometimes it's haha bad, but most of the time it's like tying a cinder blocks to my legs and drowning in a river bad. I don't know what kind of blackmail Matt Shazama and Burke Sharpless have on Sony executives to keep letting them write some of the most dumpster fire scripts, like Gods of Egypt, the 2017 Power Rangers movie, and of course, freaking Morbius. It's astonishing that Sony owns the right to the entire Spider-Verse with hundreds of unique spider people and their stories. They could have explored characters like Spider-Horse, who's a horse with spider powers, which would have been a more compelling narrative than what we got with this Terminator ripoff. The best thing this movie had going for it was the deeper cut of Spider-Woman that we've never seen on a big screen. But the writing, the editing, the acting, the cinematography, the sound design, and the lack of shoes made these characters so tarnished that I don't think we'll ever get to see them again in a blockbuster movie. And that sucks more than getting shot in Queens, which is an actual line from this movie. So, let's look at the details of a movie that set superhero movies back 20 years. Growing up watching Spider-Man the animated series, Madam Web became the grandma that I never had. I mean, I have a grandma, just not one who's a clairvoyant mutant who can see the future. So, when this movie got randomly announced, I was interested to see how they handled this mystical and mysterious character. Of course, it was handled with one of the weirdest origin stories in modern media. I hate to admit this, but this is my third Dakota Johnson movie. The first two being 50 Shades of Grey. When I saw her billed as the lead actor, I pulled my own Madam Web and foresaw some of the worst acting performances. Unfortunately, my visions came true as Dakota Johnson somehow overreacts and underacts throughout the movie, which drags down any scene with emotional weight. On top of that, her character is just straight up mean. Madam Web in the comics and games can be a little, snarky and cocksure because of her ability to look into the future, but Cassandra Webb is a dick.
You have a winning personality. I guess I got yours by mistake.
The most jarring part of her character is she's a paramedic. Someone whose whole job is to selflessly save others. But when Spider-Terminator shows up, she immediately tries to ditch the girl she's trying to protect. And then later, she emotionally blows up on them because she has to save them at this point. It really made it difficult to support a hero in a superhero movie, to say the least. Then towards the end of the film, she takes the hardest 180 and adopts our three troubled teams because she develops some motherly connection with them. Mind you, none of them are actually orphans. Speaking of non-orphans, our other three leads are a mixed bag. I use the term leads very loosely here because they're honestly more similar to a MacGuffin than full-fledged characters. Which is sad because I wanted to see what these three future Spider-Women could do. Julia Carpenter, a Spider-Woman who uses psionic webs instead of traditional ones. Anya Corazon, who can conjure exoskeleton spider armor. And Maddie Franklin, who has a cat allergy. All these characters stem from the more mystical side of Spider-Man lore, and this movie gives them the shortest end of the stick. The trailers and marketing for this movie do such a great job of convincing you that these are going to be big cinematic battles like we're used to in superhero blockbusters, showcasing what their powers can do, only to have them do superhero shit for like 3 minutes of the total runtime. I don't need something exploding in my face every 10 seconds like it's a Michael Bay film. But I would prefer the superheroes do superhero things a bit longer than it takes to warm up a Hot Pocket. We only get to see a glimpse of what they could do in a flash forward, where the Spider-Women kick the shit out of Ezekiel Sims. And even though it's probably the most exciting part of the movie, the way they shot it made me want to throw up. There are so many camera rolls and blurry shots that felt like I was getting a swirly back in high school. And don't even get me started on the costumes. They give me Batman and Robin PTSD. Everything looks cheap and rubbery, especially Maddie's spider arms. I've seen amateur cosplay have better quality than an $80 million movie. I know some people like them, but those people are wrong. And if you can convince me in the comments that any of these are good, I'll wear one to Comic-Con, how about that? After the superhero scenes conclude, and my will to live fades away, the remainder of this movie focuses on the relationship between these three unlikely friends and their rude kidnapper. I mean, mother figure. Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Marcet, and Celeste O'Connor probably have the best performances in the entire movie. But that's probably just because they have the least amount of lines. They start as strangers from different social cliques, but after one big trauma-dumping powwow, they become sisters for life. Their characters don't develop past this. Besides the flash forward, nowhere else in the movie we catch a glimpse of their potential. They don't possess dormant powers that suddenly emerge in the final fight, nor do they engage in any notably heroic deeds. All we gather is the anticipation of the future event where they'll supposedly push an old man out of the window, so that's pretty neat. This brings us to the reason the plot is even happening. Ezekiel Sims, aka Spider Terminator, played by Tahar Rahim of I Saved My Belly Dancer fame, brings a cosmic gumbo of a performance, mixing the one-liners of John Wick and the charisma of Borat. I could not figure out for the life of me if his acting was dog water or the editing around him was. In the end, it's probably both. It's surreal to me that in 2024, a movie with ADR so atrocious can be released in theaters. The dude's lips would move and the audio would come out like a week later. It also didn't help the lines themselves were so dumb. Almost all of his dialogue was delivered with this cringy whispering angst that would make Keanu seem like an Oscar-winning actor. Sims is evil because he is evil, is pretty much the motivation of the character. He doesn't hesitate to kill a woman he just had sex with to get what he wants, but struggles to take out 3 teenage girls who, mind you, at this point, have no powers. I know Madam Web is there to protect them, but there is a scene where he takes out 12 policemen with ease, then disconnects his controller so the girls can escape. Either he's dumb as a rock, or the protagonist's plot armor is so strong a critical role couldn't get past it. The scariest part of this villain is his costume, which honestly, I vibe with. His messy webbed spider suit is inspired by the indigenous tribe that worships the mystical spider, which Sims gets his powers from. The biggest question I have about this suit is, does Peter get his inspiration for his spider suit from a murderer? I ask this because in this movie, we get the birth of Peter Parker. You heard me, the birth of the Messiah himself in this dog shit of a movie. And that's my biggest issue with these Spider-Man adjacent movies. The Sonyverse movies like Venom and Morbius love to dance around Spider-Man lore, but this movie straight up tangos with Spidey Easter eggs. It all starts with Adam Scott playing a young Uncle Ben, which at first I was a little upset, but my second favorite Office character does a great job of showcasing Uncle B in the situation we've never really seen him in before. But after that, things get convoluted. Ben mentions he's going on a date with a girl and doesn't say her name, which is obviously May. One eye roll later, we're introduced to a pregnant Mary Parker, played by a random cameo, Emma Roberts. I'm all for little nudges in Spider-Man lore, like the newspaper in the movie is the Daily Bugle. But when the entire plot of the movie is furthered by fan service to keep me interested, that pisses me off and disrespects me as a viewer. I'm not here for Spider-Man. If I was, I'd watch literally any other Spider-Man media, including that weird MTV Spider-Man show starring Neil Patrick Harris. But now, the birth of the Spider-Man is tied to Madam Web and her troublesome teens. Do you think Uncle Ben will mention to Peter that his old blind and clairvoyant co-worker adopted 3 teens and trained them to fight an evil spider person? Or do you think he's just gonna stick with the great power comes great responsibility thing? The recent decline in the quality of superhero movies is further pushed by this movie. I don't know if Columbia Pictures doesn't care anymore, or learned that the current meta is tricking women to go and see this dumpster fire on Valentine's Day with the promise of an all-female cast of superheroes. What I do know is this movie is a 2 out of 10, with its only saving grace being Adam Scott. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play Cones of Dunshire. Thank you guys so much for watching my first ever movie review. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video and if you want me to review some more superhero movies. Even though this was one of the worst movies I've seen all year, it was a blast to watch it with some friends and make fun of it. I have an idea for like a Mystery Theater 3000 style movie review, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Until next time, fair winds and safe travels.